Clarkey alongside Oliver from Rugby League in My Opinion. Welcome to the first of our end of season reviews. So we're going to review every single NRL team. This will be the first one. This will be the Broncos. We're hoping for this to go maybe 5 to 10 minutes each. The format it's going to follow is ladder positions, season highlights, lowlights, biggest change that we believe is required, our MVP and most improved, some general thoughts, and then a final grade. So for the Broncos, they finished the year in 8th place, which is pretty low. I think Matty Johns predicted them to win the premiership.
I know he predicted them to make the grand final. I think he said him and them and Penrith, so up there. Yeah.
Matty had a shocker. I predicted they'd come 9th. You?
Predicted 13th.
Okay.
And that was the big one that I remember pre-season, got a little bit of grief for. However, I will get to it. I believe that my reasoning behind it sort of came true.
Okay. And last year they finished 6th, so I think we can agree they sort of went backwards as a club. For the season highlight, I've got the emergence of Payne Haas and David Fifita. It's unusual though, and I think this will present some unique issues for the Broncos in the future. Usually your two best stars are the ones on $1 million.
Yeah.
These two, I believe Payne Haas is on a reasonable deal, but Fifita isn't. He's still on a very low contract, so in years to come, or even as early as November this year, it could come around to bite them. So their highlight, in a way, is also a low light.
Yeah, definitely. For my highlight, I've sort of looked for the teams, their specific best game for a lot of them. And for the Broncos, I really went for that win against the Roosters in round 10, that great defensive effort. And that's when I believe a lot of people started to think they would turn their season around, which they sort of did, but not to the extent we expected. It was a great defensive effort. I believe that was really the emergence of Tommy Dearden as well, as a rising star. So I look at that specifically as probably their best game of the season and probably their specific highlight of the season too.
That was an interesting game because Cooper Cronk was his idol and the second most experienced NRL player currently playing, or of all time I believe actually, and he was the most inexperienced.
Yeah.
So obviously a huge highlight for him, but we'll go to low light now. I've gone with Darius Boyd.
Yeah.
For me, it's just sad at this stage because he was a former rep star. I grew up watching Darius Boyd being like the second fullback to Billy Slater, but one of the best wingers, a great finisher outside Greg Inglis. And I watch him play now, and I don't think there's ever been a case in history, correct me if I'm wrong, where a fullback has been moved to 5'8" because they were going so poor.
I don't think so. And you know what? At the age that Boyd is, I've never seen a positional switch that big at that age either.
That's true. What have you got for your low light?
I've got, again, another game, specific the Parramatta loss. I mean, around week 1 of the finals. And again, we can bring Boyd up in that one as well to sort of keep on your topic here. In that game, I noticed, and this has to do with Anthony Milford as well, he just wasn't putting in enough effort in the halves, and we saw Milford play as sort of the fullback and a half, and he was exhausted by about 20 minutes in. And I guess, when one of your key players like that, Milford, who was trying to control the game, was exhausted after 20 minutes, there's not that much you can do, and it sort of, reverberated amongst the Broncos pack, and, by half-time, they just weren't going to win, and I believe that they didn't think they were going to win either because it just definitely showed. It was a class act by the Eels as well. We got to remember that, and it was at Bankwest Stadium. But I really think that was a really poor performance from the Broncos, and that sort of summed up their season as a whole.
Yeah, I think the saddest part about that afterwards was everyone, particularly Joey Johns, saying Milford's unfit because they have a hooker, Jake Turpin, at halfback, and a fullback who is probably the most out-of-form player in the competition at 5'8". Milford is at fullback to employ his running game.
Yeah.
But when we look at game managers, he was also the most experienced game manager.
Yep.
So he was effectively playing 3 positions there. 5'8" with his short kicking, halfback with his game managing, and fullback with his running. And to do 3 things and not be fatigued. Biggest change required, I don't think this one's rocket science, and I assume you'll all agree with me. They just need a game-managing halfback. Yep. Someone to tell Payne Haas where to be, to tell David Fifita to be out wide for this play, to put a nice short grubber in for Katoni Staggs to capitalise. They have all the correct pieces, but they just lack the anchor of their ship. And that's obviously a pretty big thing. You want to have a halfback.
Yeah, but I've got, they need to improve in the halves as well.
Yep.
Look, for me, for 2020, it's that big of an influence, as you were saying, that right now I have Brisbane outside of the top 8. If they get a decent sort of half, I'm not putting them up top 4 or anything. They still have a bit of a ways to go, but I'm backing them back up in that top 8. Just to speculate a little bit, a guy like Chad Townsend, would be amazing. Aiden Caesar, for example. They're obviously not star players, but let's be honest, which star players want to go to Brisbane right now? They need an effective controlling half, and you know, those guys, not taking away from them, they could be star halves. You know, they've shown the ability in the past. And you know, the talks with Brodie Croft, this is nothing against Croft, but you know, part of the reason why he was probably dropped from Melbourne is because of his inability to control the game.
Exactly.
And you know, his inexperience as well. You know, he's only very young and still needs kinks to work out. You know, just like in science, you know, science class here, guys, 2 negatives don't make a positive. So, and I think that's what we'll get out of that situation if it comes to fruition. So I hope that they get a controlling half.
You still think Sam Williams is a good option?
I think he's obviously, there's a preferred option in Caesar or Townsend, but I believe that Williams, you know, he's got that sort of calm, that experience in the game that will probably help a bit behind the scenes as well. I feel. But obviously, I'd say Caesar and Townsend are probably the two that they'd want to try and be targeting.
Definitely.
Hey, you know, Jack White, and there's talks of him maybe not re-signing with Canberra. He might be an okay option after next year, so we'll just have to wait and see.
I think some hidden gems, maybe Jamal Fogarty. He has played NRL before with Titans, didn't really set the world on fire, but I am told by everyone that watches Q Cup, he was fantastic all year. Burleigh Bears obviously won.
Yeah.
And then from the Newtown Jets, Braden Trindle.
Yeah.
His dad was a former player for the Bulldogs. He led them to, he was fantastic this year. Spoke to him a few times. He never actually got to sit down with the coach and have a talk about playing first grade. But he does believe that with Kyle Flanagan gone now, that he could be the next cab off the rank, which makes it hard for Sharks to release him. But I guess it depends. If they want to go and experience what we know we're going to get and it's not the best, Sam Williams, Ada Hingano, or if they want to take a risk, which I personally don't do, I think you go for someone from reserve grade level.
Yeah, but the thing is with Brisbane, as I said, I think one of the key components that they need in a half is someone with that NRL experience. Because, you know, we know with these Q Cup players, they've obviously got the raw talent, but especially, you know, Brisbane, probably the biggest brand in the NRL, all the eyes are on you. You know, in this current situation where they need a half, you know, everyone's saying they need a half. If you bring up someone from reserve grade, that's a whole lot of pressure. And I just don't know if it's wise to take that risk at this time.
Definitely not. I don't think so, especially when, like we said, they've got all the other pieces ready. Why take a risk on the most important? My MVP, guys, I don't think anyone's going to be shocked here. It's Payne Haas. Yeah. It's not Darius Boyd. He just missed out. I'm assuming you got Haas as well.
I got Haas as well.
Just incredible, man.
Do we need to explain it, really? I mean, come on, those individual efforts this season, I mean, he really carried the Broncos on his back some games. I just keep thinking back to that run against Penrith. That sort of summed up his season. You know, a great individual effort by a great individual player. Hopefully, he's got the teammates come next season that help him back it up.
That was one thing I just spoke to Chatty T about as well. Who has come in as an 18-year-old, played Origin, won Rookie of the Year, won Prop of the Year, and set to make their Australian debut? I can think Israel Folau might have done it with centre or wing position. Maybe GI. But I think GI debuted too late in the year.
No one really in sort of a central position either, you know, in the middle of the pack. You know,
exactly. It's freakish.
Yeah, exactly.
It is freakish. My most improved, I went with Matt Lodge. He has more tackle breaks, meters, and tackles on average per game this year. I think he went from a key piece and he went to more of a leader this year, and that's what we saw with his stats rising. Who did you have?
Well, I was thinking of Matt Lodge too, but I went with someone a little bit different. I actually went with David Fafita Jr. Now, he's obviously a rookie himself, so of course he's going to improve, but he's up there just under Haas for MVP, so I thought I'd give him his time of day here in the most improved section. Just similar to Haas, but I'd say not to the extent of Haas. You know, I believe made his Origin debut as well for Queensland.
Played all three?
Yeah. Off the bench, and he was fine for Queensland, and amazing for the Broncos. As I said, those two guys, they just need the pieces around them to step up, and they'll be fine.
Yeah, I think last year I knew he was good. I didn't know he was this good.
Yeah. Same with Haas as well,
yeah.
I have to say.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. So general thoughts, guys, on the Broncos season. What I've got written down here is, well, it starts off with massively disappointing. I thought they made a lot of wrong calls this year, and a lot of those were centred around the players they released. I understand Seabold is coming in, he wants to implement a game plan, he wants to build his roster. That's what every coach wants to do. Unfortunately, he did inherit Wayne Bennett's roster, But as we've said, they finished 6th last year. There wasn't need for these drastic changes, and between retirement and releases, they lost over 1,000 games of NRL experience. No team come close to that this year. That is, the nearest was probably 200, 300 max. I thought that was very unwise by Seabold, potentially showing. I mean, at the end of the day, they did get rid of Wayne Bennett, in my opinion, the best coach for a rookie coach.
Yeah.
Perhaps that was Seabold showing a little bit of his inexperience. And the biggest thing for me is they face the unique issue of retaining their players because their best players are their young guns.
Yeah.
They're not the well-experienced heads like your Darius Boyd, Andrew McCullough, etc., etc. Look, I thought overall they were very lucky to play finals this year. They were the only team that made it with negative win-loss and negative for and against.
Yeah.
And to finish off my spiel, I give them a final grade of C+.
Okay.
I think maybe we're a little bit too critical because in the day they did still make the top 8. But in a very underwhelming way. I think as long as you make the top 8, you got to get a pass mark for me.
We'll get to mine.
We'll go to you for your general thoughts on final grade.
My general thoughts sort of similar to you. This is a big reason why I had them 13th at the start of the season, right? Too many sheep, not enough shepherds, as you were sort of alluding to. Too many, yes, there was a lot of... The reason why a lot of people had Brisbane up in the top 4 was because of halves, was because of Fafita, you know, Katoni Staggs coming in as well, all these young players. But the young players are only really going to lift if there's a leader there to show them the way.
Right.
There was not really I mean, look, their captain Darius Boyd, just look at the season he had. You're talking about in that forward pack specifically, you know, Matt Gillett didn't have the best season.
Didn't have a big impact.
Yeah. Alex Glenn ended up in the centres by the end of the season, although he did have an okay season. Matt Lodge was really the leader, but he's only young too.
24?
I thought it was 20... he came back when he was about 22, didn't he? So he'd be about 24 now. But yeah, that's what I was saying, you know, and they're looking at this man for captain next season when a lot of people, you know, sort of disagree that he should be the captain next season, but can't really think of anyone else that should be captain because there's just that lack of leadership. So that's what they need, and that's why I think they need an experienced game patrolling half as well, because that brings in that aspect of leadership, I guess you could say as well. For an overall grade for me, now I've gone with D, but the reasoning behind this is, you know, I've gone it on a team-by-team basis, sort of, not necessarily my expectations, but the general expectations of where they would finish or how they would go in the season compared to what ended up happening. And I'd say a lot of people probably expected Brisbane to finish up near the top 4, if not in the top 4, and they finished down in 8 with that negative record being kept in mind. And we've got to sort of think of the run of their season too. They had a dreadful start to the season, sort of a run of games in the middle, and then they sort of they sort of balanced out a bit towards the end of the season, and for Brisbane we were expecting a lot more for that, so I've got to go with D.
Absolutely fair. That's our wrap up for the Broncos end of season review, guys. Stay tuned on our Facebooks, YouTubes, Instagram, wherever you're watching it, because we're going to have 15 more for every team.